It's that time. Time to dispense with all the preamble, all the discussions we've had with Brother Alfonso, who we love very much, and finally experience the 7th generation of Z car. So you and I already covered a lot of the bullets and numbers as it pertains to this 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6 that puts out 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque in the tech review of this same car. However, there, I kind of sandbagged you. I held back a couple of details that are more pertinent to the full first drive review, specifically relating to the performance model. That's the one with the stiffer dampers, the bigger brakes, as well as some other small changes. Well, one of the big changes that comes along with that is fitted to the cars that are fitted with manual transmissions, like this one, because why wouldn't we start out driving a 7th generation Z with a manual transmission? Because we'll get to the automatic in a future episode. Anyway, manual transmission and performance brings along a mechanical limited slip differential as standard. Now that works in conjunction with like a sort of pseudo launch control system. It's not the same as the launch control system in the automatic. This one, it's kind of similar to what me and my idiot friends used to do in high school. One of them had a GT 5-liter Mustang, and when we would accelerate, we wouldn't lift from the accelerator and just shift. This is actually designed to do that, not something that some idiot in New York came up with. And then another thing that is fitted to the performance is a sport exhaust, changes the tune of the car. Maybe you'll hear that as we're driving it. And then there is the fuel economy. And normally I wouldn't bring it up in a car like this, but remember, I drove this car from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. That's about a 4-hour drive. This is rated in a manual for 18/24/20. I was doing just a hair over 30 mpg, and I can tell you I was not driving slow. Coming along for the ride with the new generation Z is a return to sanity in the mass department, 3,536 pounds, or depending on express your weights and measures, 1,604 kilograms. If this were an automatic, it would be 66 pounds heavier. With that, certainly sounds like a Z, and it feels like a Z. This, you definitely can tell the extra horsepower, but the odd thing is you do not really feel the extra torque there. That kind of surprises me because there is an additional amount of torque here, but it doesn't have the same immediacy that we experienced in the B58 in the BMW, or shall we say the Supra. Maybe it's because that's an inline and this is a V. You definitely feel the extra power, but it doesn't come in like between 2 and say 3,000 RPM. Once this thing gets above 3,000 RPM, that's when it absolutely comes alive. I'd say somewhere between 3,000 and 4,500 RPM is the sweet spot for this engine, and that's where it makes you feel like V6 turbos from Nissan in the past. Then there's the transmission, and here, surprise of surprises, another reminder of Zs from the past, which is overall, to say, a good thing. Me personally, I've always felt these transmissions, their throws are a bit long, and maybe I haven't been in a Z in a very long time, but that shifter perhaps a bit too tall to me. I know, pedantic details, but what I'm looking for, now that we got more power coming out of the engine and the personality of that power, I'm looking for a more precise transmission. Overall, the marriage of the transmission and the engine do work very well. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game, Mind the Absence game, with today's contestant. Arguably one of the most important new car introductions over the past couple of years, and I don't say that lightly. Yeah, we could say the Corvette was important, we could say the 992 was important, but there are very few cars like these, like a Z, a 992, a Corvette, I would argue in other segments like F-150s and S-classes, that are this important on the segment that they compete in because they kind of lead that segment. And this we've been waiting for, what, 13 years? Yeah, 13 years. So with that, 2023 Nissan 400Z, $49,990. Disappointed? Well, you shouldn't be, because I'm kind of sandbagging you. That's the car we're driving today. It's the performance model that has The different suspension, the bigger brakes, the mechanical limited slip differential, all that kind of stuff. And it's the same price whether it's automatic or manual transmission. However, that's not the basic car. If you remember our discussion with Brother Alfonso, he told us, he said it A, is going to be cheaper than a 4-cylinder Supra, and B, less than 40,000 US. And Alfonso, he is not only the chief designer of Nissan and Infiniti, he is also a man of his word. Granted, it's only $10 cheaper, but the base price is $39,990 for the Sport. Then we get to the color. When I was in Vegas, I saw a number of colors on offer. I saw the gray, not attractive. I saw the red, very attractive, especially with a two-tone. Then I saw the yellow, which is what comes on that Proto, the one they're only making 240 of, we talked about in the tech review. I have to say the yellow is my favorite color. And normally I'm not a yellow car guy because I have this nightmare that I would buy a yellow car and be excited for 2 weeks, and then I'd get up and I'd go into my garage 2 weeks later and I would see it there. I'm like, oh my God, I bought a yellow car. So to me, I think the red is the best choice, although the blue is very pretty with the two-tone, and you gotta pay for it, $1,295. Then the illuminated door sills, you guys know I am a sucker for this, $500. And then get this, they charge you extra for the floor mats, and it's not cheap, $400 in a $50,000 car. Brother Alfonso, can you fix this? Then the only other thing we add is the destination and handling from Japan. That's where the cars are made, $1,025. I'd like to point out that's quite a few $100 cheaper than the destination handling on Hyundais and Kias, for a total retail price of this performance with the manual transmission in the blue of $53,210. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, those Protos, the 240 limited edition they're making, it's only in yellow with a special interior, that has a base price of $52,990. And now you and I need to press on to really what this is about, and that is the driving dynamics. And there, once again, you step into this thing, you're like, oh, that's a Z. It's a little sharper, but that's definitely a Z. And let's kind of do a recap of what's underneath the vehicle. So it's double wishbones up front, multi-link in the back, stabilizer bar front and rear. Now, huge point we have to cover here because I've had an unusual experience with this car we are in. I got the opportunity to drive it from Vegas back to LA, so not just on roads like this, but also on a freeway. And their ride quality, unusually good. It's better than you would expect from most sports cars. Now that brings us to an incredibly important point, the size of the vehicle. The wheelbase, 100 inches. How does that compare to the obvious? The Supra's at 97, 911s, they're at 96. But the length, they're a little bit closer. Like the Supra and the Z, they're like spot on. Believe it or not, the 911, that's a little bit longer. But why is that important? Well, usually a vehicle this short wouldn't have good ride quality, especially on a freeway. This, a bit of a departure, didn't really expect that. Now that we have that out of the way, let's press on to the different flavors that are on offer in the new Z. There's the Sport, the basic one, and the Performance, which is the car we're driving. And one of the biggest differences between the two are the brakes that are on offer. In the basic car, it's a 12.6-inch diameter rotor with 2 piston calipers. In the back, 12.1 with 1 piston. Not very exciting. This car, pretty sizable difference. 14 in the front with 4 piston calipers, 13.8 in the back with 2 piston calipers. It does work well with the immediacy of this more powerful engine. I'd argue the brakes, they're almost more brakes than you need in a car that's only 3,500 pounds, and that is light for today's day and age. Then there's the steering, and here it's direct, good feedback. I'd say that the weight is almost there. It could be a little bit heavier. My guess, a coming Nismo version, they'll probably fool with that. Then there's the dampers. Here, that's another difference between the Sport and the Performance. The reality is this is tuned for a bit more compliance than I would like, but it is still very good. Like, this is a fun car that you can push to the limit. I've always liked Zs. I've always been a fan of these things. This one just has a bit higher limits of adhesion. Not earth-shattering difference, it's just more modern, I think is the best way to put it. Overall, a very fun car, but the thing is, you get into it and you're like, oh, this is very reminiscent of Zs that I have driven in the past. And again, I'm gonna say the same thing here. Big function of keeping the weight down. That's, I think, the big secret of why this works. It's not a 4,000-pound car. So we have ourselves a bit of a mixed bag here. You see, I like this. I like this a lot, but I don't love it. And I really, really, really wanted to love it. And why is that? Well, the fact that this car even exists is impressive. The fact that it costs what it does is even more impressive. But where it lets me down, and this is where we get to the wish list, it absolutely, positively, at least in the performance grade, needs adjustable dampers, or at the very least, stiffer dampers and a lower ride height. After spending so much time in the car, remember, most of these cars, I don't get to drive for like 300 miles and then go scream down canyon roads. So this one, it really needs a lower ride height, and I think that would fix the lack of the adjustable dampers. Or maybe that's going to be fixed with a coming Nismo edition. Either way, this is just one man's opinion, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do have to share with you, on the drive back, you would have thought I was Moishe himself parting the Red Seas. So many people came out of the woodworks to video this thing, to stop me. I'm like, oh my God, is that the new Z? Their minds exploded. Now, you know I'm biased with Brother Alfonso and his work, but clearly he has hit a nerve with this thing, because very few cars really bring people out of the woodworks like this does. So I see you in the next episode. Bis später.